Sorry for how we felt about. Eric and I did not manage to make it to the movie theater this week, so our how we felt about is going to be about a movie that we watched on YouTube. A documentary. But like a lot of documentaries, I wouldn't say movie in air quotes. This is a documentary, but it was a movie in air quotes, which might tell you a little bit about how I felt about that. But anyway, before we get into the documentary, Eric and I are going to be talking about So Much Damage, which is a documentary about Image Comics that just came up on SyFyWire. But before we do that, let's hear a little bit from Rasco, who's going to tell us about the Disaster Artist. Now, Eric and I have every intention of going to this. We will probably feature it next week, but we'll listen to Rasco tell us a little bit about it. And Rasco, try to go real non-spoilery and kind of general, if you would. I watched. We'll be covering this a little bit later. I have finally sat through the preposterous, insane, whatever you want to call this, The Room, and The Disaster Artist is, of course, about the guy who made this film.
I've seen this more than any human being should, and I read the book like 2 years ago. I've actually read the book twice. I read it and I listened to it.
Book, yeah.
Yeah.
But long story short, it wasn't playing anywhere we could find it, and now it is. So Eric and I are going to be able to go.
Yeah, for like just this week.
And it's just this week. So, but Rasco's already seen it, and so Rasco, why don't you tell us a little bit about The Disaster Artist, sir?
Okay, so The Disaster Artist, it is about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tommy Wiseau. But this movie is directed by James Franco, which I think is really interesting because I'm not sure if he's directed any other movie.
I think this is his debut.
Yeah. And the big thing that I think is impressive about this movie is that it's not a joke movie, and he's not giving a joke performance. That's the best part of the movie, is that the movie is a real movie before it decides that it's going to be a comedy. And
that sounds really intriguing, but also almost disappointing, in a way.
Is it?
It's not. It's not disappointing.
Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead.
You couldn't find a way to more satisfying, you could not tell this story in a more satisfying way. Like, this is everything that this movie could have been and needed to be. It is hilarious, but it is not a comedy. And like I said, James Franco, he's not giving a joke performance. Like, we all have seen 1,000,001 people do the Tommy Wiseau voice and like the imitation, but here it is not that. That he's acting, like, it doesn't feel like a performance that is too ridiculous to be put on, because it doesn't treat him as this person that is too crazy to exist. He's a crazy person that they believably get you to believe actually exists. That's what's great about the movie.
But that's fascinating given how little anybody knows about him. Like, how do you make a character as sympathetic as what you're describing without really knowing his background and how we got there?
Yeah, it's mainly about it where a lot of the heart of the film comes from is this relationship that Tommy has with Greg Sestero's character played by Dave Franco. A lot of the heart comes from their journey together, but it also it's the very, because Tommy's a simple person, is where is why you buy into him, because there's a lot of things you don't know about him, but there's a few key things that are just like, oh, that I can resonate with. Like, that's in everybody. There are certain, he's got this like this willingness and this drive and almost like a naivety, like, oh, it can work out. I just have to try. I just have to go for it. Anybody can achieve their dream. You just got to be the best. That's why as a character, it doesn't feel like a joke. It's not too much. It's not something that you get fed up with and are just ready to move on. It's you love every second of it because the performance, like I said, it's not a joke. That's awesome.
I'm excited to see it.
Me too. Because my two big reservations of the film before we saw the trailer, well, from like the teaser clip, was I don't know if I need to see a Tommy Wiseau like impression for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was a big fear of mine. I was like, I feel like that's gonna get old. And the other one is I'm really worried about Dave Franco not being able to embody that character. He seems off to me, but
is that his brother?
Yes. Yes,
I haven't even heard of him, so that's really weird that his flesh and blood would play his best friend. That's really interesting.
Like, girls love him.
That's part of what works about the movie, is that it almost seems like the people involved in the movie, just on the cast level, they're all people that you know are friends. Like, if you know who these celebrities are and their careers, you know that all the people who made this movie, like, they know each other. This has probably been something they've been talking about, because we've heard that this movie's happening for a long time, but this is something that we know for a fact they've been, talking about, brainstorming about for a long time. I mean,
yeah, it was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah.
It was going to be called The Masterpiece.
It's just going to be developed together inherently because it's been just in production for so long. That's you can feel that. You can feel that everybody was on the same page. It makes an argument for, like, movies having a really long development period. Like, this is a good example of why sometimes you can't just decide, we're going to make a disaster artist movie and it's coming out in next year. Sometimes you can't do that, because I don't think this movie would be what it is if it was just, okay, we have the idea, there's the script, we made it, and it's out in 2 years. It would not be the same movie.
Yeah, it can't be a business decision. It has to be a passion project in the first place, yeah.
Yeah, and also there are a lot of really funny, like, celebrity cameos, but they're not like celebrity cameos where it's like, hey, it's this person. It's like they picked actors to be specific, like, actors in the room, and it's hilarious the actors that they chose. Like, it's like, I don't want to say anything about it, but there are a lot of, like, celebrity cameos and actors that you'll recognize from other things that maybe feel a little bit cameo-ish, but it doesn't feel like that at all within the context of the movie, and that's what's great.
So I guess the big question is, that I'm sure everyone's waiting with bated breath, are you feeling it?
Yes.
Here's Rasco's sign flip. Here, Rasco, put your arm like right over there. Let's see if we can line this up. Oh, it's over here. Okay, all right. It's like, there we go. He's feeling it. All right. I'm really excited to see that.
Me too.
And didn't initially think I would care, but of course, and I never bothered, watching The Room, and finally you've made me watch it. He made me watch on that later, and I mean, obviously that's a really bizarre, fascinating, person. But it's more. I was more interested in just to see if you could pull a thing like that off, because it sounds like a really ambitious, strange thing to try to make a movie about.
Mm-hmm. And the book, having read the book, it doesn't immediately go like, yeah, and this is your 3-act structure, and this is how you clearly adapt to this. It's just as telling. Yeah,
it doesn't sound like something you'd make a biopic out of.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost want to see it just to see if you can manage to make it not the train wreck that the thing it's about is. But it sounds like, in certain ways, the way you're describing it, Rasco, it's almost like they made their movie in similar ways, just in that that it's such an independently kind of made film, and they get a lot of people that they know already, and like it's almost like they made a competent film in a similar way that this incompetent film was made.
Yeah, no, it kind of is that exactly. It's just a bunch of people that had made and been involved in successful films, then getting to make a passion project, versus like someone who's just starting with their passion project, The Room. It's really funny. They like mirror each other in that way.
That's really neat. We're going to move on now, and Eric and I are going to talk about So Much Damage, which, like I said, is the documentary about Image Comics. And the first thing I wanted to mention about this is it's not what I was expecting. It's not really a movie. It feels like it's not a real well-made documentary, and it looks like it was made on about the level my documentary was made, and it just seems like it was about $20, and besides some travel costs maybe, and it's
but yours was better edited.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a really strange bird. It's cut up into 5 chunks, and you can't really put it together and make it a movie. You couldn't really very easily put this on like a DVD or something without making it like little mini-sodes, because each of them, I think this is for, it's almost like if you read comics, you must be like the ADD crowd. So like you watch 15 minutes of it, and then you forget all about it for 2 weeks, and then you go back to it, because there are...
Except it drops all at once.
Which is really strange, but like... each episode recaps things from the last episode, and they'll like an episode will end with someone saying something that they then say right away in the next one, or we'll even reuse pieces of interview in the middle of something that hardly relates to what it was before. It's very strangely organized.
They're real excited to have Robert Kirkman and use almost all of his good material before we get to the Robert Kirkman era of Image.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So it's supposed to be. We should break this down. It's supposed to be the rise and fall and then rise again of Image. So it's sort of in 3 parts. But if you're going to do 3 episodes, I would have made it that. If you're going to do multiple episodes, I would have made it 3 and made it that. I mean, you have almost like an inherent 3-act structure just in that story. I think
every part I felt like they're 15-minute chunks. Every part should have been at least a half hour. There's not enough time spent in any single part.
Any part, but especially the early days.
Especially the early days.
There's too much stuff that you specifically, because you read up so much on comic history that isn't in that documentary, and it's not informative enough. There are things I learned, especially but I was much more intrigued by the latter day stuff. I was much more intrigued by the last 10 years than I was anything else.
But I also think they gloss over that stuff way too much.
Well, they do. That's true.
I would say this is almost for no one. It is, if you do not know the history of Image Comics, don't watch this. It will not give you a good understanding of what happened.
Especially it's hard to tell what we're even talking about and why we're talking about it.
Especially the fall.
It's badly edited.
First of all, this movie has inaccuracies, just flat out inaccuracies. But when we get to the fall, we basically just cut to a couple of them saying, well, yeah, but Marvel and DC were also doing things. We're not really responsible. They didn't go into certain things that Image Comics did that severely led to the downfall. And there should be points where, if this was a more competently, more objective documentary, we would bring back the title. When we open with when you guys are going to do so much damage, that needs to come back when they almost kill the entire industry. Can
I suggest this, like, before we go down too far in the rabbit hole of this art isn't working? It's not art, and it's not trying to be. Can I throw that out? It's just not. It's not a real thoughtful piece. It's kind of just a bunch of interviews we tied together with a real loose structure. Like, we're not really trying to make it a piece. And I don't mean that everything has to, but if it's just interviews strung together, I would have rather just listened to the guys talk separately.
Yeah.
I would have rather they just put up 5 2-hour interviews where I'm just listening to each of these guys tell their story.
Yeah. It's not.
There's no production value.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's not for people that don't know the story of Image Comics.
And I don't mean it's made too cheaply. It looks like it's made cheaply.
Yeah, and it looks like it's made by people that don't know how to make something like this.
Yeah.
All of those weird, someone's talking about someone, and, like, we show a picture of them, and they're, like, looking like this. Like, they'll be like, yeah, Todd McFarlane was a jerk, and he just cut to Todd McFarlane, and he's like...
We made that joke last show when we saw the trailer for it. Isn't that weird? They made a way better trailer.
Yeah.
Than the actual thing they made. But we made the joke last time that we would have loved to have seen McFarlane just never actually get to say anything. I didn't know where he just keeps, like, looking. There are these places, Rasco, where they'll just cut to McFarlane and he's just staring. And he looks all shifty-eyed. He's like, but they find places to make everyone look like that, and they hold your hand where without fail almost. If someone is talking about someone else who was interviewed, they cut in footage of that person staring off into space. Constantly. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's so weird. But so, this is for no one who doesn't know this stuff, but it's also not for people that know this stuff, because the only thing you get out of this is getting it from the horse's mouth.
Now, there are some factoids. There are a couple things you and I both went, oh wait, really?
That's true.
And I'll throw out a big one here in a minute.
Okay.
Like there's one thing I'm really glad I watched this for.
There's a couple of things where, like you can get out of this, but, like, as a piece, as a whole, you're mostly hearing stories you've heard before, and a lot of times not as in-depth as you've heard them before, but you are getting to hear them say it and see them talk about it, and I just want a whole documentary of Rob Liefeld doing his impersonation of Todd McFarlane.
That was the best.
Hilarious.
That was the best. And he breaks into it.
We're gonna find out how wrong they are.
That was hilarious. he breaks into his McFarlane, like, without skipping a beat.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
The big thing I was glad I watched this for was Bendis. and he's
Yes.
hardly in it. But
Yes.
but the big thing I found out from this was that Bendis was supposed to write Spawn, and he got fired.
He got fired because he took Ultimate Spider-Man. He did not leave. He took Ultimate Spider-Man, and McFarlane fired him.
Yeah, because he went to work at Marvel. He
Yeah.
wasn't exclusive to Marvel at that point. And how different would my life have been?
Yeah.
If Bendis had, I mean, I don't mean to make everything about me, but like, most people watching this know I devoted 2 years of my life to that nonsense, and a lot of my only reprieve during those 2 years of the Spawn hell was Bendis in a Sam and Twitch, which a lot of was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And if only he had gotten to write Spawn. I don't know if that's enough in his wheelhouse. I don't see him, as the like occult celestial guy.
No, I don't either. Although I don't think he's ever. Well, he's done some Doctor Strange stuff in Avengers, but
Yeah,
that's not
but that was one of the big things I got from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was something I forget with Kirkman that I was surprised by. But some of his stories were really interesting. The whole thing about like driving who was it? Somebody to the airport.
it was Larson. I think it was Eric Larson.
Was it Larson?
I think
Yeah.
it was Larson. Well,
That his is a real American dream story.
Yeah.
I mean that's really cool.
the thing that blows my mind is that someone can write at the level that Kirkman writes, and his pull box just said all Image Comics. Robert
Yes.
Kirkman, all Image Comics. How does
Fascinating.
that man come out of that material?
What a great point.
The problem is you hear everything Kirkman says at least twice, if not 3 or 4 times. They keep using his material.
Yeah.
And that makes, like, for me, like, I almost kind of
But
like
I would watch a documentary all about that guy.
once you've heard Kirkman repeat a story, stop the documentary. After that, you're going to hear everything you've heard from him again, and you're also going to get modern creators come in and be given about 30 seconds to say something.
And I get the sense that they weren't even... I mean, we're being real hard on this. I got some things out of it, but
Yeah.
it's just not well made, and I get the sense that the interviewers were not good interviewers. Like, there were probably really interesting things that they either could have gotten out of some of these guys, or that they left on the cutting room floor. I think it's poorly made and it's poorly edited.
The definitive documentary about Image Comics is still to be made.
Do you do this with documentaries where you kind of picture the guy on the other side?
Sometimes, yeah.
And I had this where I was just like, who is that guy on the other side? Well, and we saw him and he talked, and I don't know who he is. That's weird, is like, he didn't
And
really...
he asked bad questions.
He doesn't. That's my point. I don't think he's a good interviewer. I said interviewers. I don't know if they have like a B team
We
for
only
some
see
of those
one
guys.
guy.
We see one guy. He does sort of what I did with my documentary, where he talks at the beginning, like introduces himself, but I don't know who he is. I don't know where he comes from. I don't know like why him specifically. It's just weird they don't give any context for who that guy is.
If you want a better and more comprehensive history of Image and that period of time, I would recommend Marvel: The Untold Story,
Right.
because it at least chronicles not they're leaving, but also the ramifications, at least on the Marvel side and looking over across the pond, and the insane avarice of 90s comics.
The story about how they were total jerk faces and just walked to DC to
Was
say we're not going to
amazing.
work at DC was very funny.
That was very funny. And also SF Debris has done it's like a 15-part series on the comic
history of comics.
specifically
In
just the 90s.
right.
And he gets into some business
I
stuff.
haven't watched that yet. I need to
It's
do
wonderful. He gets into some business stuff that I haven't heard anywhere else. That just makes it even more
It's cool that he did
mind-boggling.
that. People have begged him to talk about comics forever.
Yeah. And he goes into Valiant a lot. He's clearly a Valiant fan, which is really interesting.
Fascinating, yeah.
But so if you want a more comprehensive history that's not interviews, I would recommend those two things. This is
I'm not going to
an enjoyable watch for the personalities of the people being interviewed.
Yeah, and there's just some slog and some kind of just irritating stuff you have to live through. So I'm going to say I'm not feeling it. I didn't like
not.
There's a lot of
feeling
things I did not like about this. But
There's some
I'm not
academic stuff that I think is worth seeing.
I can't flat out not recommend it.
But if you just
for
want to know about Image, this is not the
academia,
place for that.
And if you just want to be entertained by
Like, this
an
is really
amusing
designed for
documentary.
us that is going to get like a couple of little snippets that we've never heard before and get to see these guys talk about. It's not really. It's not that informative. It's kind of enjoyable to watch in certain
Real
places.
disappointing.
Yeah, really disappointing. The definitive documentary on Image is still to be made.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're gonna move on now to our next segment on the Omnibus. Thanks a lot for watching How We Felt About, if you're just watching that segment, and we'll see you again next time.